The game that made Mario wasn't about Mario at all. It started with one arcade cabinet and an angry ape in 1981. Now, over 40 years later, Donkey Kong Bananza might be his biggest and wildest game yet. Get ready for a wild evolution. This is the evolution of Donkey Kong. In 1981, Nintendo needed a win. Their game Radar Scope had flopped in North America, so they turned to a young game designer named Shigeru Miyamoto. Miyamoto's original plan was to create a game based on the cartoon Popeye. But when Nintendo could not get the rights, he had to create his own characters. Mario, or Jumpman at the time, replaced Popeye, while Donkey Kong took the role of the villain, standing in for Bluto, Popeye's main enemy. Drawing inspiration from Disney's Beauty and the Beast and the 1933 film King Kong, Miyamoto designed Donkey Kong as a dumb yet fun villain. The donkey part of his name came from Miyamoto wanting to show that the character was stubborn, like the saying, "Stubborn as a donkey." The Kong part was chosen to make people think of a giant ape, just like King Kong. Universal Studios actually tried to sue Nintendo, claiming they copied King Kong's name. But Nintendo's lawyer, John Kirby, proved that King Kong was in the public domain and won the case. Nintendo later honored Kirby by naming a character after him. The victory was massive for Nintendo, as it gave them the confidence to seriously expand into the US market. Funny enough, Nintendo of America hated the name Donkey Kong at first, but they quickly changed their minds once the Big Ape became a fan favorite. Fun fact, Donkey Kong was Shigeru Miyamoto's first major video game project, marking the start of his legendary career. He later went on to create some of the biggest games in history like Pikmin, Star Fox, Super Mario Bros., and The Legend of Zelda. Thanks to Miyamoto, Nintendo became a giant in gaming, and many of his creations are still loved around the world today. The original Donkey Kong arcade game set the stage for one of gaming's most iconic rivalries. Set on a construction site in New York City, it had Donkey Kong throwing barrels and fireballs to stop Jumpman, aka Mario, from rescuing his girlfriend Pauline. At the time, Donkey Kong was the most advanced arcade game ever made, and revolutionary in many ways. It featured 4 different stages instead of just repeating the same one, introduced jumping as a main gameplay mechanic, and was one of the first games to tell a story using short cutscenes that pushed the plot forward, literally taking gaming to new heights. It even helped create the platformer genre before the term was ever used. However, due to a programming bug, the arcade version hits a kill screen at level 22, where the game breaks and becomes unplayable. But despite that, Donkey Kong's success was wild. With a budget of just $267,000, it became a massive commercial hit. Just from arcade cabinets alone in the US, it made $280 million, which is around $930 million today. The game was also released on various ports, selling an additional 15 million units. The game birthed not just Donkey Kong, but also Mario, 2 of gaming's most iconic characters, and laid the foundation for Nintendo's global dominance. Its role in shaping the gaming industry is massive. Fun fact, it is still debated whether Donkey Kong kidnapped Pauline because he was actually in love with her, or if he simply wanted revenge on Mario for laughing at him in the Game & Watch titled Donkey Kong Circus. The lore apparently runs deep. In 1982, Nintendo flipped the script. This time, Mario was the villain. After locking Donkey Kong in a cage, it was up to his son, Donkey Kong Jr., to rescue him by collecting keys, dodging traps, and climbing vines. Miyamoto originally wanted Donkey Kong to star again, but his large size caused gameplay issues, so they introduced Jr. instead. Confusingly, Donkey Kong 2 was a Game & Watch game released a year later, but Donkey Kong Jr. was the real sequel. Donkey Kong 3 took the series in a strange new direction, replacing Mario with an exterminator named Stanley. This time, there's no princess to save, just Donkey Kong hanging from vines in a greenhouse, while Stanley blasts him with bug spray and fights off waves of angry insects. The game did okay in Japan, but failed miserably in the US, causing the Donkey Kong series to go quiet there for years, until a massive comeback in 1994. Fun fact, Stanley the Bugman starred in Greenhouse and Donkey Kong 3, but after that, he vanished into Nintendo's graveyard. I guess not every Nintendo character is destined for massive success. Nintendo had a bold idea with the educational series on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and Donkey Kong Jr. Math led the charge in 1983 as the first Donkey Kong game made specifically for home consoles. It asked, what if we took the fun out of Donkey Kong and replaced it with homework? It flopped. Hard. The educational series was scrapped almost instantly. Years later, IGN gave it a 3 of 10, and Polygon called it the worst Donkey Kong game ever made. It would be a whole 10 years before the next Donkey Kong game was released, but it was well worth the wait. In 1994, Donkey Kong Country kicked off a new era for the SNES. Nintendo handed the franchise over to a small British studio called Rare, and they turned Donkey Kong into a 3D legend. The game delivered smooth platforming, roll jumps, minecart chaos, and animal pals like Rambi the Rhino. Oh, and the soundtrack? Still a banger. Donkey Kong Country was inspired by the Super Mario series and was one of the first home console games to feature pre-rendered 3D graphics, which was revolutionary at the time. Not only did many game reviewers give it perfect scores, but it also sold 9.3 million copies, making it the best-selling Donkey Kong game and the third best-selling SNES title, behind Super Mario World and Super Mario All-Stars. It later sold another 4 million units on handhelds. Even today, it remains the top-selling Donkey Kong game on a home console, not counting any re-releases. Fun fact, Diddy Kong was originally meant to be a redesign of Donkey Kong Jr., but Nintendo liked him so much they made him a brand new character. To bring Donkey Kong to life, the developers at Rare visited a zoo to study real animals, but gorillas were too slow, so they based his movement on a galloping horse instead. He got a bit more ape-like in later games, but he still runs way faster than a real gorilla. In 1994, the OG Game Boy got Donkey Kong 94. It seemed like a simple arcade port until it revealed 97 extra levels. It also introduced DK's red tie, Pauline's new look, and Mario's backflip. A year later, Donkey Kong Land brought the country experience to handheld. With fresh levels, unique designs, and brand new enemies, the game stood on its own and sold 3.9 million copies. After the success of the first game, Rare returned with Donkey Kong Country 2, which did almost everything better. With more time, money, and freedom, they created a darker adventure filled with moody swamps, haunted forests, pirate ships, and deadly beehives that looked like they were designed to ruin your childhood. This time, Donkey Kong gets kidnapped, so it's up to Diddy and his girlfriend Dixie to rescue him from Crocodile Isle, a place so cursed it makes Mordor look friendly. The duo brought new moves, faster gameplay, and some of the best music in the series. Tracks like Stickerbush Symphony still hit hard today. While it didn't sell nearly as well as the first game, Donkey Kong Country 2 still sold 5.2 million copies on the SNES, received major praise, and is now seen as one of the greatest 2D platformers ever made. Released in 1996, Donkey Kong Country 3 kicks off with Donkey and Diddy gone missing, leaving Dixie Kong and her baby Hulk cousin Kitty Kong to save the day. With the Nintendo 64 just around the corner, Rare pushed the SNES to its limit, delivering sharper graphics and a bold, colorful art style that wasn't loved by everyone. The new overworld let you steer boats, find caves, and trade with bears. It added freedom, but not everyone was sold. It sold 3.5 million copies, which was significantly fewer than its predecessors. In 96 and 97, Donkey Kong Land got 2 sequels on the Game Boy, Donkey Kong Land 2 and 3. Both were basically scaled-down versions of their Donkey Kong Country counterparts, marketed that way in Japan. But in the West, Nintendo acted like they were brand new games, fooling no one who'd played the SNES versions. They were still decent games, but the smaller screen made boss fights a lot harder because you couldn't see half the action.
Diddy Kong Racing!
The first Donkey Kong-related game to hit the Nintendo 64 was Diddy Kong Racing, giving Rare the chance to take full advantage of the N64's 3D power. Funny enough, it wasn't supposed to star Diddy at all. Rare was working on Pro-Am 64, but halfway through development, Nintendo told them to put Diddy Kong in the driver's seat. They also added their own mascots, like Banjo and Conker, before they were famous. And just like that, Diddy Kong Racing was born. But this wasn't just another Mario Kart, it was an entire adventure RPG disguised as a kart racer. It had planes, boats, boss fights, weird lore involving an evil space pig called Whiz Pig, plus a great soundtrack. Diddy Kong Racing actually outsold Mario Kart 64 in its first few weeks, though it ended with 4.9 million sales compared to Mario Kart's 9.9 million. Still, it scored an impressive 88 on Metacritic, while Mario Kart 64 trailed behind at 83. In 1999, Donkey Kong 64 went all out. Aimed to be even bigger than Super Mario 64, the game was so big it needed the expansion pack just to run, pushing the console to its limits. This time, Donkey Kong and his crew had to stop King K. Rool from blasting their island to bits. But the real challenge? Collecting an absurd 3,800 collectibles. Players could switch between 5 Kongs: Donkey, Diddy, Tiny, Lanky, and Chunky, each with unique moves, musical instruments as weapons, and color-coded bananas. It was a huge game with a huge score, earning a very impressive 90 and selling 5.3 million copies. Still, it couldn't beat Super Mario 64's 94 score and nearly 12 million in sales. Fun fact, the intro to Donkey Kong 64 kicked off with the now infamous DK rap. Meant as a joke, it received a lot of backlash and is often considered as one of the worst songs in gaming. Still, it became a cult classic and even made a surprise comeback as Donkey Kong's entrance theme in the 2023 Super Mario Bros. Movie. Then we got the fever dream known as Donkey Konga. Instead of a regular controller, players used DK bongos, 2 plastic drums you actually hit. You could drum to songs like We Will Rock You, the Pokemon theme, and Nintendo classics from Mario and Zelda. But that wasn't the end of DK bongos. In 2004, Jungle Beat mixed drumming with platforming. You tapped the left drum to move left, right to move right, both to jump, and clapped to attack enemies or collect bananas. Meanwhile, boss fights called Konga battles had you clapping to dodge and pounding the drums to crush rival gorillas. Both Donkey Konga and Jungle Beat got decent reviews, and each sold just over 1 million copies. Still, Donkey Konga 2 came soon after, and Japan loved it so much, they even got a Donkey Konga 3 that never released anywhere else.
Mario vs. Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong's rivalry with Mario returned in 2004 with Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance. It mixed platforming with puzzles, as Mario chased DK to get back stolen Mini Mario toys. It introduced the Mini Marios and kicked off a whole series on the DS and 3DS. Next came more puzzle platformers, with King of Swing on the Game Boy Advance, followed by its sequel, Jungle Climber on the Nintendo DS. These games focused on timing and rhythm, with Jungle Climber adding power-ups and anime-style cutscenes. While they were decent, fun, handheld titles, the next game would go down as one of the weirdest and worst Donkey Kong games ever made. In 2007, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast launched on the Wii and instantly crashed. Instead of racing in carts, you flew on rocket-powered barrels. It was originally created for the GameCube using DK bongos, and honestly, it probably should have stayed there, as the shift to Wii motion controls was terrible and led to a lot of backlash. The game sold just over 500,000 copies and scored a brutal 46 on Metacritic. Nintendo Gamer called it a game so bad, it brings shame upon Donkey Kong. Eurogamer added, it's not even worth the hour of your time it takes to get completely sick of it. After Donkey Kong 64, the series lost momentum. It faded, no longer a major part of Nintendo's spotlight. How could this happen? Well, Rare, the creators of most major Donkey Kong titles, was bought by Microsoft in 2002 and could no longer work on the franchise. With no dedicated studio, Donkey Kong was stuck in spin-offs and cameos. But a massive comeback was just around the corner. Thankfully, brighter days lay ahead for Wii owners. In 2010, Donkey Kong Country Returns launched and brought the Big Ape back in style. Retro Studios, the geniuses behind the Metroid Prime trilogy, had just finished Metroid Prime 3 when Shigeru Miyamoto approached them to create some side-scrolling monkey mayhem. What they delivered was a full-blown 2D platformer with a modern twist. Donkey Kong and Diddy returned, this time with co-op play and a jetpack for Diddy. New mechanics let you chain roll into jumps, blow air at objects, and demolish entire lines of enemies. Plus, secret paths were hidden everywhere. The story? More stolen bananas. But this time, the Kremlings were gone. In their place came the Tiki-Tak tribe, a bunch of cursed instruments brainwashing animals to fight Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong Country Returns was a beast of a comeback, scoring 87 and bringing back some of that classic SNES magic. It sold 6.5 million copies on the Wii, nearly 3 million more on the 3DS, and was released in HD on the Switch in 2025. Fun fact, Nintendo actually trademarked the phrase, "It's on like Donkey Kong," back in 2010. So if you use it in a movie or ad, maybe call a lawyer. For casual use, you're probably safe. Probably. If this is the last time you hear from me, now you know why. Retro Studios returned with another banger in 2014, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Originally released for the Wii U, it kept the 2D platforming but added more dynamic camera movement, underwater swimming, and a Kong Pow move that lets you wipe out all enemies on screen and turn them into bananas, or extra hearts. Diddy came back with his jetpack, Dixie returned with her helicopter hair, and for the first time ever, you could play as Cranky Kong. The player chooses which Kong buddy to team up with, and each one changes how you move through levels, adding variety and strategy. With epic boss battles, another amazing soundtrack by David Wise, the legend behind the SNES Donkey Kong tunes, and a tough hard mode after the main game, Tropical Freeze delivers serious platforming fun. It scored 83 on the Wii U and sold just over 2 million copies. But because the Wii U was a commercial flop, many missed out. Thankfully, the Nintendo Switch re-release in 2018 gave this frosty adventure a second life, bumping its score to 86 and selling an additional 4.6 million copies. But the most exciting Donkey Kong game might still be on the way. Outside his main series, Donkey Kong has shown up in plenty of other games. In 2015, he joined Skylanders Superchargers with his own custom ride, the Barrel Blaster. He's been a regular in Mario Kart, Mario Party, and of course, Super Smash Bros., where he fights against other gaming icons. In 2018, Ubisoft added Donkey Kong Adventure as DLC to Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, where Donkey Kong joins Rabbid Cranky and Rabbid Peach to take down Rabbid Kong and save his island once more. More recently, in 2024, Mario vs. Donkey Kong got a full remake for the Nintendo Switch, with updated visuals, new levels, fresh cutscenes, and a co-op mode. Fun fact, beyond the games, Donkey Kong appeared in the Super Mario Bros. Movie in 2023, which made over $1.3 billion, making it the highest-grossing video game film ever. You can also visit him at Universal Studios theme parks, where he even has his own roller coaster. Ever since Tropical Freeze, Donkey Kong fans have been waiting for over a decade for the next big adventure. That wait is finally over. Donkey Kong Bananza swung onto the Nintendo Switch 2 on July 17, 2025, and it's making big waves. This is the first 3D Donkey Kong platformer since Donkey Kong 64, over 25 years ago. Donkey Kong now has a fresh new look inspired by the Super Mario Bros. Movie. In Bananza, Donkey Kong and young Pauline team up to recover stolen banana-shaped diamonds, exploring massive underground sandbox levels filled with enemies, puzzles, and collectibles. The big twist? Almost everything is destructible. You can smash walls, dig through terrain, and even rip chunks of the environment to throw at enemies, or ride like a snowboard. It's chaos powered by the Switch 2's hardware, with a dynamic 3D map tracking every bit of destruction in real time. Classic side-scrolling sections and minecart rides also return, bringing a heavy dose of nostalgia for longtime fans. And critics are loving it. Bananza sits at 91 on Metacritic, with IGN giving it a perfect 10 and calling it a brilliant successor to Super Mario Odyssey, and a smashing return for a classic Nintendo character. Many are comparing it directly to Odyssey, with some dubbing it Donkey Kong's biggest comeback ever. From arcades to sandbox destruction, Donkey Kong's journey has been wild. And with Bananza now here, it's clear that Kong is back on top. For more, check out the full evolution of Nintendo and Mario Kart, and stay tuned